So welcome, everybody. This is April 15th, 2015, and this is Darlene Long calling in from Owen Sound, Ontario. And I'd like to introduce my co-host, your co-host tonight. And this gal and I have known each other for, it's got to be 2 decades. We've been here for so long we forget when we met. But I remember when I met her, for sure. I actually met her. The very first time I met her was when was after Dallas had been born. No, that I remember that you stood out there with the story about your grandson, Burma, and how taking these products had changed his life, and how he's in university now, correct?
He is. He'll be 21 years old come October.
Okay, well then now we know how long I've known you. Okay, and we were in Atlanta, and he was a little wee tiny baby.
Yes, he was.
And he had just been given a diagnosis of being free of cancer.
Yes.
That he had when he was at birth. Anyway, this lovely lady that you just heard pipe in there is my co-host. She's from Rainsville, Alabama. She's a master herbalist. She is a master storyteller, and she's been with Unicity for more than 23 years. She comes from Rainsville, Alabama, and I hope all of you just love her down south accent like I do.
Well, thank you, Darlene. I can't help my little old accent, okay? But Darlene's, everything she said about me, it's pretty well the same with Darlene of telling stories, because the one reason Darlene and I can tell as many stories as we do, we have been working with the Unicity products. We came from the Enrich side, and so in the Enrich side back all of those years, we were really, really, really into learning about the products and what all the products would do. And, of course, through these years that we've been with Unicity, we have learned these products inside and out. And with all of Darlene's research, putting all of the information on Shop Talk Notes on Facebook, please, I beg you not to miss going there and finding our products and seeing what all they can do for you and for your loved ones and your friends. It's amazing. Okay, Darlene,
let's kind of rewind, because there were some interesting conversations going on here around kidney stones. And you know what? It is becoming more and more and more common hearing about kidney stones. Back 20 years ago, you hardly ever heard about them, but you hear about them all of the time now. So, Burma, you were helping somebody. What was the question that they asked you? You were talking about your kidney stone recipe.
Right. They were asking what to do for kidney and bladder infection. That was the question. And I was telling them what I did for myself is what I usually tell other people, and that is to take 15 SKB. And I've had a lot of people, Darlene, to look at me when I tell them that in the shop. 15? I said, well, if you want to keep your kidney infection, just don't do that. But they'll say, okay, if it'll get rid of it. So I tell them to take 15 SKB and then drink water. And I'm not saying drink 50 ounces of water. I'm just saying drink some water for the next hour, and then go ahead and do 15 more of the SKB to help with that kidney bladder infection, because the products that's in that SKB is just amazing to help that kidney bladder, build and strengthen itself, so that, and it has golden seal in it to help kill out that infection that's going on in there. So that's the reason SKB is so important for kidney bladder infection.
Okay, and then Carol, if you would come back in and share your story.
Just hit *6, Carol.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay. Well, I have the southern drawl, too, but, Burma, I always tell people I talk like this because I drank so many years from a Dixie cup. Works for me. Okay, I was telling a story about a nurse that works in our urology office. Like I said, I am a urology nurse, and we see a lot of kidney stones, but this nurse actually was working in the office, and she actually had kidney stones. And I failed to mention that years before she was in a car accident, and they did x-rays on her after she was in the emergency room, and they actually documented those kidney stones in her kidneys then, and that was like 8 years earlier. And now to present date, she started hurting with these stones one day, and we x-rayed her in the office, and sure enough, they're there, still there, bigger than they were 8 years ago. And we put her on the regimen that Burma told us, with the 15 SKB and the scoop of the Bone Fortify and the lots of water. She waited about 3 hours and did it again, did the same regimen the same day. Now, when a person's kidney stones are inside the kidney, you usually have to go in with a procedure called lithotripsy, and that's actually where a urologist will go inside with a probe and shock wave those stones to break them up and to remove them. And they usually start with 1,000 shock waves, then they go to 2,000, and then they go to 3,000, depending on how dense and hard the stones are. Well, this girl had been on this regimen for about a week, and she had gotten to where she couldn't stand the pain anymore. And so she went ahead and had the lithotripsy done. And the doctor that did her procedure told me that she was expecting to have to go to 3,000 shock waves to break up her stones because of the size of them and where they were. Well, they only had to do the 1,000. And she said those stones were actually so soft that she was surprised that she had not been able to start to pass them because they were so soft. And I honestly believe the regimen that Burma told her to do actually softened those stones, and had she waited out and kept doing the regimen maybe another week or so, she probably would have been able to either pass them or they were probably dissolved.
Correct. And I chimed in that I just went through this with a friend of mine out in California who was not unfamiliar with our Unicity products but called for help with these kidney stones, and he continued to do it. It took him 3 weeks, Carol and Burma, to finally get rid of them. He withstood the pain because he had no insurance and he couldn't afford the procedure. I don't know, what is the procedure worth, Carol?
I don't know how much it would cost, but of course it's an inpatient procedure. You have to go to the hospital and be put to sleep to have it done, and then they have to hold you out there for a while to make sure that you can eat and drink and before you can go home. So it's an all-day, sometimes 2-day event. I have no idea, but
thousands.
Just the thought of having a probe go up inside me into those little tiny ureters, because one little slip could you could mess up a ureter, and then you talk about more surgery. So I just wouldn't want to have the procedure done if I didn't have to.
So they go up the urethras,
yeah, they
through
go
the bladder, up the ureter to the kidney.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my good God, I'd be taking that stuff for a month if I had to.
And guess what they do? Once they get up into the kidney and they shock wave these stones, they will leave a stent in that ureter from the kidney down into the bladder, and that stent will stay in for about a week. And I have my patients tell me that stent drives them crazy. It's more painful than the stone.
Really?
Yeah, but they have to keep the stent in because when you go in there and manipulate that tube, it's going to swell, and you don't want it to swell shut to where the urine can't flow from the kidney to the bladder, because then you're going to have hydronephrosis, which is swelling of the kidney, and you can kill a kidney like that.
Correct.
Yes.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
So why not do it naturally where you don't have to worry about any of those side effects?
Okay. Let me tell my story about a little 3-year-old. And this sounds like, good grief, a 3-year-old with a kidney stone? Well, It did, and this has been about probably 5 years ago. And the grandmother called me. What happened is what Carol's talking about there. The doctor had went up in there trying to get the kidney stone out of this 3-year-old, and they actually split the kidney. And when they did, they just sewed her back up real fast and left it in there. So the grandmother called me, and she said, Burma, what can we do for a 3-year-old? And I said, well, do you think you can get 15 at a time of the SKB into her and some of the Bone Fortify? And she said, yes, I can. So I told her, to do the 15 and the 15. Well, it took her 2 days to get the 30 in the little girl. But that was the first of the week, and by the end of the week, on Saturday, they had to carry the little girl back to the doctor for him to check her to see if she had stones still, and they were gone because they had been doing the regimen that we're talking about here. So that was on a 3-year-old.
Okay. Well, here's the other question. Somebody had me, how we got on this, I don't know. But anyway, I had a question come to me about somebody who has chronic UTIs, urinary tract infections, chronic ones, and chronic kidney infections. And the answer to that one is probiotics, life fiber, and SKB. The question came back and said, well, what about SIG? And I said, well, yeah, you could use SIG for the initial infection to help because this person has been constantly taking antibiotics because of these UTIs. And I said, but I'm telling you, the probiotics and the SKB is going to help her keep clear of these these chronic infections. So yes, do that. And the life fiber. Now, why would I want them to use life fiber? And the point is that as our intestinal tract backs up and you have poor intestinal health, and if you've never used life fiber and then all of a sudden you had your first time through, you can see what changes in your bowel movements. And I know that the intestinal tract is not part of the urinary tract or the kidneys. However, the bacteria and the inflammations and all of the stuff that's going on into the coming from your anus as you're having your bowel movements, what is happening is the bacteria is infecting the whole area of your bottom, and it's a very short trip from your bowel to your urinary tract. And so we want to keep everything clean. We want to get that probiotics in there, get that yeast out of there, get those bacteria balanced in that intestinal tract. And we want the life fiber to be in there to be its broom so that it's constantly being swept out and cleaned out and taken care of. And the SKB feeds the kidneys and feeds the bladder. Plus it contains all these incredible little herbs that hardly anybody talks about anymore. And the juniper berries has that antimicrobial, antifungal properties, and it's an antioxidant. The golden seal is like an antibiotic and an anti-inflammatory, and it actually has it can draw it because of the astringent action that it has. It actually soothes that irritated mucous membranes that you get, that burning sensation. And this works. This works also for people who have chronic vaginal infections too. And so and the parsley is good to help clean that intestinal tract as well as your urinary tract. And the marshmallow in there is soothing all the irritated and continuously irritated membranes that are part of your whole urinary tract, and it acts like a diuretic, so it keeps that urine flowing, okay? As does the uva ursi. These people that have huge water retention problems and things like that, uva ursi is a great, great answer for that. And it's just, the pan-PN that's in there is actually what helps to move those kidney stones for you. And, of course, the ginger is reduces your inflammation and increases your enzyme action in your digestive tract. It's all put together. It's a brilliant, brilliant little product. And Carol, you're a urology nurse.
Uh-huh.
How much sense does that make, what I just said about the life fiber to you? You can star 6 back in.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
Well, the main reason, Darlene, is because that bowel can be laying against that kidney that's causing a lot of that irritation and everything. And so keeping that bowel...
And it could be leaking into the kidney, yes.
Yes. And keeping that bowel clean with the life fiber is keeping that pressure off of those kidney and the bladder. So that's...
Right.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? That,
you sure can.
Most of the people, I want to say a good 90% of the patients that come in our office have horrible digestive function. They're either overweight or they're chronically sick with sinus problems, allergy-type things, and that tells me right there, digestion.
And constipation.
And constipations. Oh, Lord, yes.
And irritable bowel syndrome.
And let me tell you, we do flat plate x-rays in the office to what's called a KUB, which stands for kidney, ureters, and bladder. And anybody that comes in there with a history of stones or suspicion of stone, we'll do a quick x-ray on them. Most of them are backed up. Their bowels are so full of feces. We send a lot of people over to GI doctors because that's a lot of their problems.
Because it's a short trip from the anus to the ureters.
That's right.
Yeah. And it has nothing to do with your external hygiene. It has to do with what your body is excreting.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. And so for all of you Canadians, this FKB, it's in the not for resale. It's inexpensive, and it's in my cupboard all of the time. And many of you have not heard the story about what happens with kidneys. And I had a grandson who had complete renal failure, both kidneys, not one kidney. We nearly lost him. Tegan is 8 years old in July. And it was right at this time of the year that it happened. And it was his kidneys. He takes FKB, just 1 or 2, every single day, Burma.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he developed some other stuff because of it. And he takes product every single day. And he's healthy, vital, vibrant, and his kidneys are totally healed. Even his ureters, those little fine tubes that go from the kidney down to the bladder, even all of the scar tissue is now gone from that. What do you think of that, Carol?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because we do see, when people do have lithotripsy or any kind of bladder biopsy or anything that you have to go inside the urinary tract to do something, you're going to have scar tissue. And that's amazing that it can be reversed, because that scar tissue can hurt.
Yeah, but he was so young, right, and so growing, and we have fed his body now for the last 5 years, more than 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Darlene, that right there is some questions that I've been getting there in the shop. How long do I need to take this? And it's amazing how many people think that you should just take it a short period of time and it's over with. No, we need to feed our body the nutrition that to keep these kidney bladder or to keep our bowel. All of these products are to be fed to our body to keep us healthy, not how long do I take it and then quit, you know. So it's very important. This is really it's an everyday game. It's not a 3-month game. It's a everyday.
And for Tegan, it's an everyday game until we are sure that he is an adult and everything's good. He hasn't ever developed any stones or any of that stuff. But it's really important around his diet. One of the things that, when I got that call the other day about, the urinary tract and the chronic kidney infections, and I said to the gal that called me, I said, the first thing you need to do is tell them to stop drinking coffee. And she said, what? I said, yeah, she's got to stop drinking the coffee. And she said, well, how did you know she drank coffee? I said, because of the problem she's got.
Yep.
You're right, Darlene. My doctor tells people they need to go without that coffee and tea.
Yeah, and tea, yeah.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Usually if they're a coffee drinker, they're not tea drinkers.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I said, she's got to get off the coffee. And I got another story to tell about this SKB and having juniper in there and stuff. There was a woman that came to me, and it's a lot of years ago. It was back in the late 90s. And she was a widow. And she was in her mid-40s. And she'd become incontinent. And so she was so embarrassed because she wore, like, we call them pull-ups now. I think we always called them Depends. Now they're advertising this on TV. So think about how many people are incontinent. Anyway, she was incontinent, and so she was too embarrassed to even date because she always needed to have this here bladder care on wherever she went. And she asked me, she said, is there any way, do you have anything that could help me with my incontinence? And I looked at her and I said, well, first off, you're going to have to stop drinking the coffee. And she looked at me and I said, how much coffee do you drink in a day? Well, she had an office job, so she had a coffee on her desk all of the time.
Wow. And
I said to her, well, it's no more coffee. You're going to have to figure out how to get off that coffee. And what we did was, at that time, we had a probiotic. I gave her probiotic. I gave her the SKB. And I gave her Life Fiber. Actually, I gave her the whole cleanse. And took her off the coffee. I had her drink some cherry juice every day, and she drank nothing but water. Would you believe, Burma, in a month she came back and she said, I can't believe it, you changed my life.
Mm-hmm. I see it
she
every
doesn't
day.
any longer drink coffee, but she was no longer incontinent.
Yes. I tell you what, I can't keep the SKB in the shop because it does exactly what we tell people it'll do. Help with what you're talking about there, help make the kidney bladder feel better. Even people that, I had one cousin that got on it that was on dialysis, even made her feel better, you know? So the product is awesome.
And so what this SKB did was it fed her urinary tract. It fed her bladder. She got off the coffee, which was hurting all of it, and it only took a month for her to gain some control over that bladder. And the other thing I gave her was Kegel exercises, where you contract, squeeze, and contract your pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
And through that exercise, when we have babies, they tell us to do the Kegel exercise.
Right.
And some of the young people go, oh, brother, right? But I'm telling you, it makes all the difference in the world as to what their future pelvic floor, the muscles are going to be like there. And it's never too late to start with Kegel exercises to build those muscles around your bladder and help you control it so that you can gain some control of it and, fill your bladder and still be comfortable and able to get to the bathroom without any accidents. It seems like a weird thing that we're talking about tonight. But I can tell you right here and right now, it's becoming a greater and greater and greater problem, because if you watch TV commercials and they're telling people to go and play golf and stuff in these pull-ups, like, you don't do that for fun.
No.
It's because they need it. So let me ask you, Carol, how much incontinence do you see every week?
Oh, geez. If I had a penny for everybody that had come in my office in a 1 week's time, I'd probably have about $50. I'm not kidding. We see it mostly in women. They'll tell me they're standing at the kitchen sink running water, and all of a sudden they've got to run to the bathroom, and they don't make it. I hear that story, all kinds of stories like that over and over again. And it's not necessarily the older people. We're seeing it in college and teenage girls, too.
And so how important is that pelvic floor?
Very much. My doctor does tell a lot of the patients to do the Kegels, especially, the poor guys that have to have their prostate removed. It really does a lot of damage to that pelvic floor then. But yes, we even have a printout that we give people that actually discusses, shows pictures and everything about those exercises.
Okay, so do you believe that the SKB would be as beneficial to a man's bladder and kidneys and doing the Kegel exercises as it is to women?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I even think that adding the Bone Fortify is also important when it comes to the urinary system, mainly because of the calcium-magnesium ratio. That magnesium is so important through the urinary tract.
Can you tell us why?
For some reason, I don't know why, for some reason I've been reading recently about the importance of magnesium, and I'm reading about how the urea, which is, the urine as it goes through the kidney and it manufactures before it goes out with all the waste product, that magnesium is important for the function inside the kidney.
Okay. Well, it's because magnesium feeds the muscle or the lean tissue in our body and strengthens it.
Okay.
Okay? And you need, 80-90% of North Americans are magnesium deficient, but the thing is you can't take just magnesium. Exactly. Magnesium needs to go into the body in the correct solution in order for it to be viable and for the body to move it, okay, for it to be mobile into your lean tissue. And magnesium is in every single cell of your body, however, and your bloodstream. And it's very difficult to detect if you're magnesium deficient because your bloodstream will maintain the same level of magnesium all the time or you will die. And so it takes the magnesium from your other lean tissues. And it starts with your intestinal tract because that's the easiest lean tissue to get to. And then it'll work its way through your body. And eventually it will steal and rob the magnesium from your heart. And you will have a heart attack. And so when you go to the emergency ward and you are presenting as if you have a heart attack, they drop an IV bag on you very quickly. And in that IV bag, now listen here, is not only magnesium and calcium, but there's also vitamin D. There is also vitamin E and vitamin C, and that's all that's in that IV. And how do I know that? Because I have a sister-in-law who's a pharmacist for the hospital. And the quicker that they can get that in the body, the less damage the cardiac incident will do. So it will have already, before it gets to the heart, affected your kidneys. It affects your lean tissues in your legs and weakens you. If you're weak in the, you know how people get weak when they're older in their legs. It seems that the older they get, the weaker they get. It's because they're becoming more and more magnesium deficient. And you need the vitamin D so the body can use all of this correctly. And so when you look at our Bone Fortify, it's got everything that I just talked about that's in that bag in the hospital to save your life in that little bottle. Pretty simple to take, wouldn't you say, girls?
I would say so.
Mhm.
So there you go. Well, guys.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Okay, I'm going to tell everybody a little story now.
Okay.
I am so mad. I am so hurt because today a friend of mine lost her husband. He died. She had been a widow for 16 years. She had been widowed from probably one of the most horrendous marriages that you've ever heard. She didn't want to have anything to do with any man because she thought they were all the same. And a year and a half ago, she met a man that treated her well. But he lied about his health. And they weren't even married for 3 months, and he was in trouble. And today he died. They've been married 8 months next week. I tried to talk to her and him a year ago because when I look at people, I have a gift. Some people need all kinds of diagnostic things to tell you that there's something going on or whatever. But I can just look at somebody from the waist up and I can tell you what's going on. And I knew that he was sick, even if he wasn't admitting it. And I talked to her last spring when she said that she was getting married, and she had asked me if I would do her wedding for her because she didn't know how to plan a wedding. I talked to her about her and her future husband's health. And the point is as long as I have memory, this woman has been in my life. So we have known each other all our lives. And I asked her a question, and she's 63. I said to her last year, "You're getting married. Is it not time to take your health and his health very seriously, to make a commitment at this time in your life? How many years of health and vitality do you want? Because you don't get it unless you do something for it, unless you earn it." And I shared her my favorite story, that we get to 40 with what God gives us, and we get the rest of the way with what we give ourselves. And I said, "How many years do you want?" And she said to me, "I'd like 5. I was flabbergasted. I said, "Why would you go into a marriage only wanting 5 good years?" at your age? What is, you know that it could be, you could have a 25th wedding anniversary. And although she takes my products, there's a lot further that she can go in her health. And he nor she would listen to me. And I had to be there today when she said to me, all I want is for him back. Why didn't I listen to you? And I know that she felt guilty this whole last 3 months, 4 months, because I have delivered product to her. She's that one customer that wants my delivery every month because we've been friends forever. And she never once told me what was going on with her husband, and because she felt guilty. And she said to me, why didn't I listen to you? All of you on the phone have people like that in your life. I don't know what the answer is. And for some people, it might devastate you and knock you right off your pegs. But for me, it builds a resolve. I had to get over the hurt and the pain and pull myself together. I texted Berman and said, I don't know if I can be on the call. I have to pull myself together so I can be nice because I was so stinking mad. For her to say that to me today. My question is to each and every one of you. How many people that you know that you're not saying anything to, or they haven't listened? So I give you her story so that you can go out and make a difference in people's lives this week.
Yes. It is very important because health is one of my statements, Darlene. I'll finish up with this. Health is not everything, but without health, everything is nothing.
That's right.
I appreciate
That's exactly right.
Yep. Everything.
And today, without his health and without him, there isn't a dollar that means a damn thing to her.
That's right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that wasn't too heavy or too much for you, but I want you all to know that the truth is, it's our mission to bring health and hope and freedom to people.
That's why we're here.
And that's your job.
That's why we're here every Wednesday night trying to help people with their health.
So I want to thank everybody for coming and listening, and it was kind of a completely how did we get there call, but I think it was a fabulous call. Thank you, Carol, for being part of this call, and your credentials and your background brings so much authenticity to what we're saying and credibility to what we're saying. And the call is recorded, and people can listen to it. So have a great week. Have a good life. And go take care of somebody you love. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.